Okay, this is the Winning and Networking Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michael, and this is a show where I sit down with interesting and influential Evanstonians and Chicagoland people and just have a conversation with them. And today my guest is the wonderful Nancy Rollins, who famously just completed her 102nd marathon in Chicago. Welcome, Nancy. Thanks for coming on.
Glad to be here with you.
So tell me a little bit about this 102nd marathon. I think that's, at least for me, what you're most famously known for. So let's start off there.
I mean, there's no magic number about 102. I started running marathons when I was 32 and just have kept running them, other than the 2 times I was pregnant. And I realized that they were accumulating. I started counting, and I still had a great enjoyment in doing the marathons. But I think as it approached the maybe 98, 99, I started asking myself, how much longer do you want to run the marathon distance? I mean, racing, I hope I can do, for as long as possible, but marathons take a little more of a toll. So I got to 100, and then I thought, well, I had some things I wanted to do. I wanted to do Berlin. I wanted to do London, which I did through the age group championship with Abbott. London was with Abbott. I think Berlin, I got a chance to sign up for that. And then so I was now going to do Boston one more time, 101.
That was 101, right?
101. I was like, okay, I did Chicago. Let's say goodbye to Chicago, Boston. But then Abbott invited me to be part of the age group championship at the Chicago Marathon. I thought, well, it's my hometown marathon, and Chicago was my first marathon in 1980. So it just made perfect sense to me
to bookend it.
That was going to be my last one, and to be, just to say goodbye to marathoning. And it was a great choice. It just turned out every way that I had hoped it would turn out.
The weather was perfect.
The weather
was really good.
I was not injured. I was well trained. As one gets older, you do get a bit slower. My PR was a 3:02 at Chicago Marathon when I was 43. And then I had one time where for a week I held the world's record for the marathon when I was 66, because I did a 3:31:02, which is about 10 minutes faster than I was used to doing it. So it's just been an interesting progression. So I wanted to run a good, strong marathon, and I did for my last one.
Awesome. Congrats. Yeah, that's super cool, especially when I was hearing you talk about, okay, you're nearing 100, and you did 100. Your 100th was Chicago as well, wasn't it?
No, I think my 100th was Berlin.
That was Berlin.
And then Chicago was 101. Nope, that's not right. 99, Berlin, 100, maybe it was 100. And then I did Boston. Yeah.
Yes, that's what it was.
You're correct.
Because I remember hearing that you did Chicago for 100. That was what my memory tells me. You did Chicago for 100, and I was like, oh, cool. Nancy got to 100. It was Chicago. All right, I'm sure she can rest. And then I heard that you did Berlin 101. No, Boston.
I did Boston.
Boston 101. And I was like, okay, well, I hope she finishes on Chicago. So it was kind of awesome for me to hear that you did 102, and that was Chicago. So like you were saying, even though there isn't necessarily anything special about 102.
No, there isn't,
it's nice to have it be the hometown marathon as the one you finished on.
Absolutely. All came together.
Yeah. So when I first heard of you, you were somewhere in the 90s, the high 90s of marathons you've completed. And I remember thinking about it. I was like, okay, wow. And this was before I knew, that you started running in your 30s.
Yeah.
And I started doing the math in my head. I'm like, wow, okay. So she probably started running she probably did her first marathon when she was like a teenager or something. And then she's just like done 1 or 2 marathons a year.
Yeah.
But to know that you started in your 30s and that you've gotten to 102, you're averaging like 3 marathons a year. So what is it like to train for multiple marathons in the same year?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I was in my late 40s, early 50s, doing 3, or I think the most I ever did was 4, but I would do 3 pretty often. There'd be 3. And it was not really hard. I think I'm different than some people are with marathon training in that I love to run all distances. I love the USATF track meets and the Masters track meets. So although would be training for marathons, I would be doing a lot of other distances because what's worked for my training is to use races to just develop my fitness and my stamina. And so I don't get overly, I always say to people, not good, as I say, to put all your eggs in one basket, which is one marathon. This is my marathon.
Right.
And then it's like 85 degrees or it's snowing and that's your race. So I would spread it out. Therefore, it wasn't that hard actually to do multiple marathons because it was just, I think the closest I did marathons is in 2 weeks. Like I did Berlin and I was 74 when I did that. So I did Berlin and 2 weeks later I did Chicago. And I actually ran Chicago better. Now, it wasn't a lot better. I mean, they were in the same range, but it was definitely better. And I think that's another way that I experienced the marathon. My brain would be like, oh, I know this distance.
Yeah.
And sometimes my second marathon, because of that, would be better.
Yeah.
Now if I wouldn't do that if I was injured. I've been very wise to not run marathons injured, and I just, it's just that I think it's enabled me to continue to have fun with them and for that to be, I push myself, but I give myself grace too.
Sure.
And I think sometimes runners are so hard on themselves that they work against their energy.
Yeah. I notice at least that with a lot of the runners that I work with, myself included, there's that completion mentality that runners have where, hey, I signed up for something, I'm going to race it. Yeah. Hey, I said I was going to do this amount, I'm going to run that amount. And sometimes, like you said, people, that can kind of work against them.
Yeah.
So you've obviously done a pretty good job over the course of your marathoning career of picking and choosing, or I guess identifying when it's working against you. So what are some ways that a runner could identify, oh, hey, maybe it's actually best if I don't race. Maybe it's best if I rest right now.
Well, certainly when there's an injury. I mean, I think that in some ways, the Boston, the year before that I was supposed to do, that I was kind of breaking my own rules a little bit because I did have an upper hamstring issue that didn't stop me. You can run with that, but let's just say it wasn't as fun.
Sure.
And I was certainly getting treatment for it. And then 2 days before we were going to leave for Boston, I came down with COVID. And so it was all canceled.
Yeah.
And I sometimes think, I don't think that I got COVID because I don't analyze it to that extent. I look at it though and say, that probably was a blessing because the Boston Marathon is a lot of hills and having a sore hamstring, upper hamstring particularly, would not be a fun experience. So that's something that I think that would usually, I think it was because it's hard with Boston. You do so many things to set it up to say, oh, I guess I can't do it.
Sure.
As opposed to a more local marathon, you might say, this hamstring thing is just, I think maybe I'll take a pass and do another. But, my body took care of it.
Yeah.
It was black and white. Nope, you're not going, you're canceling.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that, I think that flexibility with your attitude and perseverance and drive are all things you integrate to be a good marathoner because you need all of them. It's you can't be, comfort zone is not the name of the game with marathons, but on the other hand, giving yourself grace and being willing to say, hey, I was going to do, like this year, the Ready to Run. I love that the Cara does. Well, it was rained out 10 minutes before I was going to start. They canceled it because there was lightning south of Chicago. They were very responsible to do that. So the guy from Evanston Running Club and I just decided as we were driving back, because we'd driven together, let's get up really early Monday morning and get that run in.
Cool.
And we did. So it took getting up really early because I had to work that day, and he did too. Later on, I was able to work some things. That's the kind of thing you have to be willing to do, rather than like, oh, it's wrecked, I can't do my 20-mile run.
Right.
Well, there's a way. You got to figure it out, though.
Yeah, and to be flexible with that and to roll with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then I feel like most people when they get into running view marathoning as like one of the pinnacles of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And you've done a lot of them, of
Mm-hmm.
course.
Yeah.
So how did you get into that distance in the first place? And then what kind of kept you running marathons compared to what I feel a lot of people do, which is run a handful of marathons throughout their career, but just generally stay running shorter distances. But you've done one of the longest distances for a very long time.
Yeah, a lot of years. I think it's a very good question. And the thing that's, in some ways, it's sad because I was always athletic when I was young. Title IX did not exist when I was in school. And there was really, I don't know, there was not any kind of organized sports, particularly for females. I did play on a tennis team in the summertime. And so in my 20s, I was sedentary. I was busy with many things, a productive time in my life, but I did not exercise at all. And I felt sad about it because I was actually very much an athletic person. That's what my body was happy being active. And so I really very grateful to a guy I was dating, Kevin. Didn't date him that long, but he got me going with running. And I took to it almost immediately. And I was training, but see, the thing I did is I jogged, whatever you want to call it, for 2 years before I ran my first race. Okay. So I started running at 30. Didn't occur to me to do a race. And just ran, and I'd find people to run with, and I was building a base. I was building a base of fitness. And no pressure, just loving. And I ran well, but I had no report card. Came home from work. At that time, I was a psychiatric nurse. I came home from work. I turned on the TV. A woman was being interviewed about running a race. And I just was fascinated. And I listened, and I went, I got to do a race. I've got to do a race. So I found the Charles A. Stevens 10K race. And that was, I think, in maybe May. No, I'm trying to think of April of 1980. And I had no idea. I didn't know where to line up. I remember, though, walking there's probably 2,000 women running this race. And I thought, this is a scene I want to be part of. I love this. So I lined up. People said, hey, what are you going for? I went, to finish? Well, what's your PR? What's a PR? And so I was as green as they could be.
Yeah.
So the gun goes off, and I just start running. But I started passing all these women, and I went, maybe I have ability. That was the first time it occurred to me. Now, my time wasn't it was like 54 or something like that, 55 minutes. But I ran every distance. I'm answering your question in a long way, including the marathon in 1980.
Wow.
Because I did the distance classic, which was 12.4 miles. I did 10Ks. There were a lot more 10Ks than 5Ks. I got involved with Tom Brunick, wonderful man, that led a track workout at the track by Northwestern, right on Lakeshore Drive and Chicago Avenue, and influenced by other runners. And so I started hearing about qualifying for Boston, what that is, the marathon. Maybe I could do a marathon. So I talked to Tom, the coach. He said, well, Nancy, if you could run 3 3-hour runs, spacing them before the marathon, you could have a good experience. Oh. You don't have to worry about your time. You could have a good experience, and you would finish. So one of the guys who I'm still actually friends with said, I'll run with you. And so I did those 3-hour runs, and they were hard, but
Yeah.
lined up 1980, scared to death. I had no idea what is going to happen. I was shaking literally. That's where it started, by the Daily Center. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I happened to fall into step with this very nice guy who I actually still have some contact with. There were no GPS watches or anything, but he said, hey, we're doing about the same pace. I'll let you know what your pace is every mile. So we started running the marathon, and he would say, yeah, we just did a 8:15 or 8-minute pace. And I was with him the entire marathon, and I felt tired at the end, but it was a very positive experience. I remember that. And I did a 3:45. And I thought, again, is that good? I mean, I would say to people, well, I did a 3:40. You did a 3:45, your first marathon? Is it, oh, it's good?
Yeah.
But that particular day, I talked to everybody. I probably seemed like a weirdo. Even when I got gas, I told the guy at the gas station that I ran my first marathon. I was talking to everybody. I've ran my first marathon, and I'm so psyched. And so from that point on, it's like, oh, no, I'm doing this. Every year I'm going to do marathons. So awesome. that was when the vision was there, the intention was there, and then I aligned myself, got to know runners that helped me to, like the first season of running, I didn't run during winter. You don't run in the winter. And then I met some people that said, you just dress warmer. Wear a kerchief. That's all we did to cover our face. So along the way, I credit so many running friends that helped me understand how to play the game, and then a lot of it I just learned. Each of us have to define how we want to do our sport, and my philosophy developed over the years.
So I heard you say earlier that there was a connection that you felt with this idea of, okay, there's all these women that are there. And I know I think I first heard of you from my aunt. And my aunt, as far as I know, and I could be getting some of the details wrong, but she was or is in a women's club with you. And then she was in a women's group. Is she still in the group? Yes? Yeah. Okay, awesome. And then she was telling me that she was going to Evanston to go to runs, and how she met this lady, Nancy Rollins, who's like a rock star. And that's kind of the first introduction that I had to you.
Yeah.
But just from listening to what you're saying, it seems like there's a big connection that you have with running, fitness, health, and women's empowerment.
Yes.
So what can you tell me about your experience in that realm?
And certainly, obviously, men's empowerment too. No, I'd say that is a passion, a vision, purpose in my life. That I can't think of anything better to do than to get people moving. Now, I happen to really like running. I think that walkers that walk, with the dedication and, put it into their schedule are taking very good care of themselves too. So to each his own. Not everybody wants to be a runner. But I found I was a psychiatric nurse from, when I started, I was 30 when I started inpatient psychiatry at Northwestern, then Highland Park. And so I was back for 20 years an inpatient psychiatric nurse. And so obviously I dealt with serious mental disorders, but sometimes it was people that just were depressed or didn't take care of themselves. And so that's why I think when I began, I would talk about running a lot.
To your patients?
Oh, yeah. I would talk to them about, I'm not against medication. Medication really can help with certain things. But you've got to make changes in your life. You've got to take care of your body. You have to eat better. You need community. You can't be alone. All those things help a person being mentally healthy. But I think that exercise is one of the things that it's so important. So I consider it a life goal that I'll do, influencing certainly my clients. And that's why I started a running club with my practice. And it's been going for 27 years. And
that's awesome.
So, and that's integrating personal growth work was exercise. So, am I answering your question?
Yeah,
Is there
I
anything
think so.
Yeah, that it's just, I mean, I guess what I'm talking about is health is holistic.
Right.
And so some people are very good in an area. I've known runners, very good runners, dedicated, but they neglect other things.
Sure.
And what I see is they're at a risk of breaking down because we need more of a holistic approach to sustain and to mentally be able to handle the times where you're greatly disappointed with how it went.
Sure, like a race in particular.
Yeah. I've had
something.
races where I've just had to, be accepting and just lament a bit, but not spend too much time because it can't always be exactly the way you want it.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, in your running group, in your particular one, do you also approach other angles besides just running, or is your running group mainly focused?
Are you talking about the one with my practice?
Yes.
With the practice, no, it's very much like the format of our running club actually is that we meet and there's walkers and runners. We meet at a home. We exercise for about an hour, walking or running, come back to the house, and we bring things for breakfast.
Oh.
And so we do a couple things, and this is obviously what I find is when people connect one-on-one, whether they're new or whether they know people, it brings about an aliveness and connection. Yeah. So we do something where we just divide in twos and just have we call it a paired share. One talks, one listens, and you switch. What's going on in here? Not just about running or walking. How did you feel when you came here today? What's on your mind? And then as we eat, we do a group.
Oh.
And so it's a group time. So it's like about 2 hours long.
Is this men and women?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea about this.
Yeah. So that's gone on. I started it maybe when I started working with the practice was in 1996, I believe. And I think I started in 1998.
Wow.
And so we started it first with just going to races and coming back to the office and having breakfast. And then I said, would you like this to be monthly? Yes. So that's when we started meeting it. First Saturday of the month, running club.
Yeah, so how does someone get involved with that if they want to do that? Do they have to be a patient of yours?
They don't have to be, or like we call them clients. And no, they don't have to be a client. There's a very small fee for, like $20 for the group and just a chance to be part of it. And no, I've had people from my church sometimes go. I've had people that in my neighborhood. And because it's not... I think the practice I work at is a very special practice. It's called Center for Christian Life Enrichment. It has the spiritual component, but I have people of all faiths or that's just not important to them. They find it to be a trustworthy practice. That's it. So I have encouraged people to be part of the running club when they don't do anything else. And they learn but a lot of times what's happened is people come to the running club and they go, people are so aware of their feelings and they seem to be able to put into words. And I said, well, it's the kind of work we do. I mean, it's certainly could try out having a session, see what you think. And a lot of times that's how people, it's kind of like a gateway sometimes into the practice, but that's not why I do it. I do it because I think I feel the same way about Evanston Running Club. Getting people into their bodies with exercising is one of the greatest gifts you can give them. Yeah, honestly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what makes a good fit for someone in that group? So what, like if someone was interested in I
think that's an excellent question because sometimes people are very private and they really don't want to talk about themselves. And so they want to exercise. And they probably would be uncomfortable because people are more open. Now, sometimes people might be a little bit shy about talking, and we never force them to talk, but that they kind of like what I say, sit around and how do these people, how do they put these things into words like they're doing? And these are just regular people that are working, have families, and I mean, certainly they can contact me if they're interested, or we have a website,
What's the name?
Well, I think it's cle.us. I'll give you the card.
Sure,
I've got
sure,
it. Yeah.
sure.
If people would want to know, or
Sure.
you could add that or something. But there's a website that they can always get a hold of me. But then also they could, probably through you get a hold of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I welcome anybody.
Yeah. So then, if you said that you started the running part of that your practice in 1998, right? When did you discover the Evanston Running Club?
Oh, I've been part of the Evanston Running Club. 19. I don't think I knew about it because I lived in Chicago, and I met my husband of 40 years now at the 1982 Boston Marathon, getting onto the bus. So somebody introduced us. He was very involved with Evanston Running Club. So we met at that marathon and really liked each other and started dating, and we got married about a year and a half later. So I started going to Evanston Running Club meetings in 1982.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's been a member since 78, I think.
Wow. And then the club started in 1970?
I think it was like 77 or something. So he was almost at the very beginning. Okay. We just had an anniversary.
Yeah.
I think it was a 40-year anniversary.
I think 50.
50. Yeah.
I couldn't remember what. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, it was 50, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a wonderful group. And I, for a period of time during my fastest running years, so that was, like late 30s, 40s, probably 40s. That's when for a period of time, because Evanston Running Club at that time didn't have all that many women for a period of time. And I wanted to run with women that would push me. So Pat Savage had the Niles West Oakton running team that for a period of time, I still was a member of Evanston Running Club, but I went to their track workouts, which they were very kind. They were sad that I wasn't running for the Cara Circuit for Evanston Running Club, but I did that for maybe, 6 years or so. And then the guy that was the coach for the track workouts, Vinnie Finneran, announced at the end of the year party that he was going to no longer be the coach because he just had too many family things. He had kids that they adopted. And I just felt the call,
Yeah.
So I because from the day one, I loved interval training. And I contacted the president, I would love to be coach. Oh, yeah, we'd love you to be coach. So Pat Savage was very understanding that I was going to no longer be part of the team, but be part of being the coach of the outdoor workouts.
Yeah.
And that's when I did that for many years, I can't even, up until just last year when I threw the baton to Keith Holtzmiller. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So are you going to continue to do the morning Wednesdays?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do the morning ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the morning ones because I really love to be at the track in time. And this is the other thing that kind of integrating who I am as a therapist with just what I believe in life is that I think that people long to be included, to be noticed, to be seen, to be part of something. And I just love coming to the track early and just walking around and looking for new people that are there for the first time. And they might come a couple times, but they'll remember that they were welcome and they might come back. And some people, they come and they stay. So I wouldn't want to ever give up timing. Keith was very kind. I said, I hadn't run on the track actually other than Masters track meets before COVID. So I went for about 2.5 years not doing any evening track workouts because I would time. And then I led the morning one, which is on the path, which is good. So Keith would say, hey, I got somebody to time. You want to run on the track? So I'd run the morning and the evening.
Oh, my goodness.
So I've never been a 2-day person, but if I get a chance to run on the track,
That's hard. The interval stuff is difficult.
It is. I just love interval training, though.
Yeah.
That's another passion. Speed training.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's fun.
Have you noticed that, I kind of know the answer to this, but it supplements marathon training very well.
It does.
I often say that, the way that you actually get faster for those longer distances is you have to get faster the shorter distances.
Yeah.
A lot of times people think that they can get their marathon time faster by trying to go for long runs quicker or long runs faster.
Yeah.
But really the trick is, at least in my experience, is to get faster with the shorter distances, which then more easily translates to a faster.
I totally agree. And Tom Brunick, who was really my first coach, the one that was by Northwestern, he said the same thing. I got some good counsel early in my years, and I appreciate it because he really did. He said, Nancy, he said, I'm noticing you run the races, you run the same pace all the time. You got to work at getting faster. You can run faster. You just don't think you can. And so the interval training, literally in 6 weeks, I went from, I was running maybe pretty much 8-minute pace in races. I think I dropped down to 7:15s.
Wow.
Just because it was all there. I had 2 years of a base. So that's, again, it helped me. My body was ready for it. Sometimes I think people do too much too soon and they think it doesn't work for them, where I think, no, I think you did too much too soon.
Yeah.
You got to back up a little bit and let your body adapt.
You notice that in beginner runners?
Yeah. Well, see, when I started running, there weren't as many opportunities I don't think I felt any pressure, number one, to run races or even to do track workouts. I was just learning what it was like to run, so that by the time I found out about interval training and races, my body, I had a base.
Yeah.
And that helped me a lot. And I just caution people when they're newer to running, just give yourself time. Just give yourself time. You'll develop the fitness. So it's just kind of patience.
Sure. So then what kind of foundational advice do you have for someone who's trying to get into running?
Well, I think, for instance, in fact, I was with them this morning, that 0 to 5K program that Evanston Running Club does, or they have them in many places. What a wonderful concept, because it helps people to get moving, and that they have give themselves a lot of grace because there's a plan. They're being told, no, you walk for 5 minutes and you jog for 2 minutes, and that honestly is a very wise way to ease into running. And just, don't get swept into your friends are all doing races. Give yourself time, because and it won't take that long. But if you really need to, especially if you start doing this when you're like 40 or something, or even me at 30, when you're a teen or in your 20s, your body's probably a little more forgiving than even it is in your 30s. So that would be the advice, is that, but stick with it. Don't, if you have a bad run, don't say, oh, I don't like running. It might just be you don't have that much energy that day. So it's those kinds of, it's again, back to what you asked about the psychological. I think let's face it, in any pursuit, psychological has a lot of effect on your success.
Of course.
It really does. And so running is just another one where the sort of the mental focus and the internal voice being kind and encouraging is all going to be much better.
Do you ever do any like running meditation or something like that?
It's a good question.
Any intentional running and mental exercises while running? I
would not say something quite that. My husband's wonderful about meditation, sitting still. He might do it when he runs too, but I find that I love to run with people, but when I run by myself, I do a lot of thinking. And I'll sometimes pray, I'll plan, I'll consider, just things that are on my mind. And so it is sort of meditative. I do some of, actually, sometimes, what do I say? There's a way that I think best when I'm moving. I've just always noticed that. Some people, if they sit still, the thoughts will come. No, when I'm moving, the thoughts flow.
For sure.
Yeah. So it has led to many things. I remember writing an article about our first dog that died, Annie, several years ago. And I don't view myself a great writer. I will write when I have a reason to, but this all came together in my brain when I was running, and I went down, I wrote it down. We had a newsletter then at work, and it was really a good article. So it's amazing how sometimes when you least expect it, things come together in your brain.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And that run, you were alone?
I was alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it in the morning too?
Mm-hmm.
That's the best
I
time.
love morning running. Yeah.
Morning runs when you're by yourself.
Yeah.
There's something like spiritual about that.
I think so. There are people that hate running in the morning, and I just say, well,
they haven't tried it long. They haven't done it enough.
I think there are people that are not morning people,
yeah.
but I am a morning person, and works best for me to get up and take care of our other dog, Zoe, and then go out and run. That's the best way. Just get out there. Afternoon runs are hard for me, but when it's track workouts, it's not hard. I like to do it. And so,
what's difficult about the afternoon time for you?
I don't think that's my high energy time. But as soon as I lead a Wednesday night run now that goes after the marathon, that's open to anybody that meets at the sports pavilion on campus, 4 to 6 miles or less if you want. But what I think it's really hard to go out for a run when it's 25 degrees and dark.
Yeah.
But you go to that Henry Crown Sports Pavilion and the lights are on and Northwestern campus is lit up and you've got your buddies, you got your lighted vest and you're dressed appropriately and you are so glad you went out for a run.
Yeah.
As soon as you get going. But it takes almost like, I know you don't feel like doing this, you've just worked all day, but it's going to be good. And it always is.
Yeah. It's awesome that you mentioned that detail of having a group run in those bad conditions kind of makes it work. So the Evanston Running Club is, in my experience, like the best running club that I've ever been a part of or even like peripherally know about.
Yeah.
And it seems like, at least for me, the thing that makes it so great is the consistency of the run leaders, because there are multiple group runs per week.
Right.
Rebecca was saying 9, right? There's 9 like Evanston Running Club weekly group runs.
Yeah.
And the run leaders are like always there.
Yep. Yeah.
So how did the club, because you've been in it for so long, how did the club really get to the point that it is right now where it's just this dominant, really good group of people that all love running?
I think it's many things, but I think that just, individuals, it grew, and individuals, and I consider myself one of them, that know the way you grow a club, and it can't be fake, you have to mean it, is that number one, that you love running and you want to pass on the joy of running, but also that you care about the people. That's what causes us to feel like, I'll feel better if I go to that run, because there's people that care about me, that I can talk about things that are bothering me as I'm running. And so I think that human beings, in my opinion, have a great desire to matter, to have people that care, and that they have an opportunity to care and be in relationship, community. So I think that ERC over the many years, because I think it's just been growing and growing, and I agree, having run leaders is a very helpful thing, because we all send out reminders.
Yeah.
And they're very much like a personal invitation, come join me.
Right.
So you're not just going to a run and I'd say sometimes I'll find somebody for you to run with, that's your pace. Because sometimes people are afraid of that. No one ever runs alone when they come to the runs,
Right.
So I think that has made some of that organization, and, Rebecca's doing a great job as president. Melissa's wonderful. I mean, we've had some wonderful presidents, and the board really does. So meets once a month. I was part of the board for many years. I'm not. You kind of want to mix it around and have other people do it, but I think the board really works well, and so I agree. People have had to move away, and they say like, can't find anything like the Evanston Running Club.
Yeah.
They're really sad that. Now, I think there are some that do exist, but, I do meet some people, like when I run races, where there's a good, solid running club, and makes a big difference.
Yeah. So then, so now that you're done with 102, I'm gonna come back to your marathon.
Yeah.
Actually, another question I had: do you know anyone who's done any more marathons than you? Do you know someone
Oh,
who's
I
done more?
do. I do. And I'm sure there's many that have done more than me. But I know somebody personally
Ah,
who we encountered each other maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago at a senior Olympics race where she ran by and said, "Hi, Nancy Rollins." I went, "Who's she?" Well, she knew who I was. And she had in her sights that she's going to be beating Nancy Rollins. Yeah. So Jeannie Rice, who was
Okay.
first in the Chicago Marathon.
okay.
And so we have been very friendly competitors for several years. And she, for a time in my 60s, I could still beat her in the marathon, but then she passed me up, and that the rest is history. But we really got acquainted this year because the USAT Masters track meet, outdoor one, was in Greensboro, North Carolina, and she was there. So we had a chance to really talk because those are fun. You run your event, you sit around and watch everybody, and you talk. So we got, and she, I think she set 4 world records at the track,
Wow.
something like that. And she set world records in the marathon. So she has run, I believe, 130 marathons. I think
Wow.
she told me that.
That's crazy.
But she's not so much the shorter distance race person. She actually ran her first track meet in Greensboro. She always told me, "Oh, I hate track." So she's just a very talented runner
Sure.
and passionate runner.
That's fun.
So, yeah.
And
yeah.
she's kind of local? Yeah, right?
She lives in Ohio, and then I
okay.
think she lives in Florida in the winter.
Mhm.
And I might go, if it works out for us, to run a half marathon in Florida that she's trying to get.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you obviously have a very friendly relationship with
We
her.
do. In fact, we were on the same team they asked me somebody got injured for the Hood to Coast race this past year, the relay.
Okay.
And the team is 70s rock. Everybody's over 70.
Cool.
Everybody is passionate about running and very good runners. I think I sent them a meeting. I think they helped me run I ran such a fast time, faster than I'd run in the last 4 marathons this Chicago. I said I partly credit you guys for that because I just got so inspired by all these people my age that were that way. So
yeah. So then what's next for you? What are you thinking about for 2024? What are you thinking about your running career in the future?
Oh, I just keep doing what I love, half marathons, and I think the half marathon's a great distance, and my body likes it, still. I mean, it's not that my body didn't like marathons at all. I'd have an issue when I would stop running where my blood pressure would drop. I have low blood pressure, and it just would drop. I keep on ending up in the medical tent, which I did not do this Chicago. I was so happy. I figured out a way to avoid the medical tent. So half marathons, all distances. I just ran a 5K yesterday, the pumpkin chase. Love the Carrot Circuit. I always will do that. And definitely the Masters track meet. Oh my gosh, I love it. Outdoor, not indoor.
Sure.
I don't like the indoor tracks. Too hard on my legs, my hips. So
it's like too tight of a circle.
It's a little bit too tight.
Yeah.
So I'll be very active with the racing. Nothing's going to change other than the marathon.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Nancy, thanks for sitting down with me. It was such a pleasure to
pleasure.
learn more about your history of running.
It was fun. It's a lot of fun talking to you.
Awesome.